All right, let's talk about jobs. You might already have an idea of what you're going to do, possibly, or where you want to go. And actually, I will ask you what that is when you get to homework one, which we're actually going to talk about at the end of this group of lectures. I think it's going to be two. So you'll know what that first homework is going to be very soon. All right, so let's talk about them. So your possible paths that you could take based on what you're going to learn in this class. Speech language pathologist. Actually, we should go up above that. Speech language pathology assistant is one. Speech language pathologist, audiologist, and then research and instruction. That's where I am. It's super fun. And we'll talk about all those. Let's start with SLP. So what can you do if you are an SLP? Well, you can diagnose and treat communication, swallowing, and related disorders. You actually can't diagnose swallowing disorders. You can image them, you can describe them. Then you have to have a doctor, like an actual medical doctor, diagnose it. But then you can help treat it. But you can diagnose communication disorders and some related disorders. So, like we talked about before, a lot of SLPs work with autism. You can't diagnose autism, but again, a doctor will diagnose autism, but then you can work with treatment and other types of help for people with autism. So, this is a good time to point out everything, and you probably already know this, but these are all health related. You're all in helping professions, health related areas. Sometimes they're called medically adjacent professions as well, which just means you're not like a medical doctor, but you are doing jobs right alongside medical doctors that they don't have the qualification for. I mean, they're not going to school for this and being a doctor. So you're in a very important part of the team along with doctors and other people as well. Depending on what area you work in, it's a different team, but it's still an important part of the team. So because you're doing some diagnosing, it requires an advanced degree, at least a master's, which is what ASU offers, is the master's degree for SLP. So you can go through and get a doctorate as well, but that isn't required to be an SLP and diagnose. An SLPA has fewer requirements. It's actually, I believe, it's just a certificate. I think you can do SLPA with the equivalent of an associate's degree and getting certification. So you can do that. Some people, do SLPA work while they're finishing up their schooling for SLP and then transition into being an SLP. And some people just focus on the classwork. And, it's totally up to you. One cool thing is that this field is going to experience about 21% job growth. This statistic is probably a year old. I don't know how that looks now. I mean, there's been a few different things that have happened since this statistic was published. There isn't an updated one, so it's not like we can actually figure this out. But certainly, the world economy has slowed a little bit. But that doesn't mean that there aren't still children going to schools who need communication therapy. There's still a lot of older adults who need communication therapy. So we would expect that this field isn't going to slow down, right? And we also have a lot of the baby boomer generation who are getting to the point where they might need speech assistance soon. Some already do. So we're expecting this field to just continue to grow. And it shouldn't be something that's impacted by what's going on with the, COVID crisis and the world economy temporarily slowing down. So it's still a really great field to be in. If you're looking for a place with job security, this is definitely the place with job security. And another thing is we have this IDEA Act, the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act, and that says that schools have to provide resources like you to children between the ages of 3 and 21. So children who qualify for it, I should say. So that's a huge range of age, and it's also a pretty large segment of the population. So not only are we expecting it to grow in terms of older population, but there are also always children who need help as well. So it's a huge, 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 huge field. So where can you work? Well, obviously you can work in schools. What you'll do is you'll help develop the 504 and IEP plans. These are for students who might need some, speech help. Either they're delayed, maybe they have disorders. Sometimes they might have some of the less obvious ones. I mean, sometimes it's just your typical, this kid is delayed in saying R's. Sometimes there's other diagnoses on top of others, and you're helping with that as well. But either way, you're involved in the 504 and IEP process, and you can kind of guide where that assistance needs to go. And then you'll also be the one who diagnoses it and who provides that assistance as well, and also kind of directs your SLPAs to help some of your clients as well. You might also work in nursing facilities. This is usually with older people, though not always. Adult and geriatric populations, though. You're just kind of trying to increase the quality of life, maybe reteach some speech processes that have been lost. You might focus on reteaching how to swallow. Sometimes stroke can affect the ability to swallow correctly. There's also ALS, Parkinson's, and dementia that can affect speech processes. We talked about that last time as well. But you can try to help reteach some of those speech knowledge problems as well. There's a lot of private practice too. Those are similar in like job function to the other two, because it depends on where you're working. There's private practice that deals with pediatrics. There's private practice that deals with older people. There's private practice that specifically focuses on swallowing problems. So you don't have to work in a nursing facility or in a school. You can be kind of like a private contractor that does that kind of stuff as well. You can also work in hospitals. Some of these things, well, actually, the other two on here are also in hospitals. So they all kind of fall under hospital, but children and injured people might come in with acquired conditions, and you could be on the SLP staff with the hospital who are going to help treat those people once the emergency part is out of the way. You can work in the NICU, or you can look at dysphagia, which is swallowing problems in preemie births. So that's another large area. And then you've also got swallowing for adults after they come out of surgery or right after they've had some of their traumatic brain injury. Swallowing is a big area with SLP. It didn't used to be. It's kind of a new thing. It used to be that we only focused on speech and communication, but swallowing is another thing that's growing and growing in terms of what an SLP can actually do. And it's a really cool area too. It kind of depends just on, where do you want to go, because the demand is there for both of those career trajectories. We'll have people talk to us about both of those career trajectories. The clinic director, ASU's clinic director, will talk to you about swallowing problems, and a friend of mine who is a clinical professor at ASU will talk about voice disorders. Those are both, they both worked in hospital settings. And then also, we've got a few people that work more in education settings that are going to come in too. So you'll get a good idea of where you're going to want to go, I think, in the future from this class. You'll have an idea of where you want to set your sights. So what about audiologists? It's a little different, obviously, because you're dealing with the hearing part, not the speaking part. But you are diagnosing, treating, and monitoring hearing problems as well as balance problems. This is kind of an interesting thing. So it's hearing, but it's also balance. The vestibular system is very close. It's in the ear canal as well. I mean, if you look at any of our pictures that we'll have later on of the middle and inner ear, you'll see the vestibular canals in there as well. And a lot of ear problems can have vestibular consequences too. That's why if you have swimmer's ear, you might be a little dizzy. If you have a large amount of earwax in your ear, you might also feel a little dizzy sometimes. So they're linked. They're pretty closely linked. So it's not just hearing; it's also balance. Audiologists have to get an AUD. It's a doctorate. It's a targeted, very specific doctorate. It's a 4-year doctoral program. So it takes a little bit more schooling than the SLP program, which is a 2-year program. But similar to the SLP, you're looking at about 29% job growth as well. And just like the SLP, this isn't an area that we're expecting to slow down for any reason. People are still going to have age-related hearing loss. And there are still a lot of people who develop hearing loss, before they get to that age-related age. They don't have to be elderly to experience hearing loss. And some people are born with imperfections in their hearing anyway. So, like it says here, 20% of Americans have some degree of hearing loss. 20%! That's a ton of people. It's a ton of people that have some degree of hearing loss. So, I mean, as people get older, we're just going to have more and more call for audiologists. And as the technology gets more complex as well, it's good to have people who are current on their knowledge too. So the job growth, not a problem here. With audiology, you also have to get your triple C's, is what they call this certificate. So in addition to passing the doctoral program, you also have to get your certificate. The ASU AUD program actually gets your certificate while you're in it. So you don't really have to worry about doing two things. Like the certificate's rolled into what you're doing for your degree, which is good. You can also get credentials through the ABA if you don't get your triple C's. So it's one or the other. You have to have one or the other. Some people have both. But like I said, if you end up going through the ASU doctoral program, you get your triple C's while you get your degrees. Nice rhyme. So where do you work if you're an audiologist? Well, again, hospitals, private practice, and education, just like SLPs, but doing slightly different things. So working in the hospital, this is another, you're dealing with people who may have had, organic problems right away. They present with problems. They come in with TBI or something like that, and you can help figure out the degree of hearing loss that they've got from these problems. You can also develop audiological rehab and also vestibular rehab as well. Private practice, again, is one of those things where it's kind of similar, but it depends on what your private practice is focusing on. So it's just you can work in a private firm. And education is a little weird because not every district has an audiologist on staff the way that they have SLPs on staff. This is more of a thing where you're like contracted by the schools to come in and test the hearing of the students. You don't actually work in the school. Though some schools actually do have audiologists on staff. It's just not super common. What about being a researcher? Well, here's what you do as a researcher. You're going to have to read current research. So you're always constantly reading new papers. And while you're reading those new papers, you identify, like, what do we not know? Like, I read this paper and I'm left with this question. Then you design research to answer that question, collect and analyze your data, and write up your findings. And then you can also work at a university teaching, like we're doing right here, or work at a private company. You make more money if you work at a private company, but the benefits are not nearly as good. So, up to you. All of these people here, this is what researchers look like. It's kind of a laid-back profession. It's super awesome. You can kind of tell that it's a laid-back profession because this was a dissertation meeting that we had. This is me. That's what my hair looks like when I didn't give myself a haircut because I was stuck inside for a long time. This is one of my colleagues. This is both of our advisor and then her co-advisor. And we were here for this person's defense. So this is like how dressed up we actually get for, big time meetings, really important meetings, which is to say not super dressed up. It's a very laid back profession. It's laid back because you're doing real serious work. The schooling that you need for this is a doctorate, but it's not a 4-year program. It's usually a 5-year program. And it can actually go a little bit longer than that. Mine took 7 years. And the reason for that is it's not planned out specifically. Like the AUD program is a series of classes that you take. PhD programs there are a series of classes worked in there, but then they also say you have to do a master's in passing, you have to do a dissertation, things like that. And so that just takes as long as it takes. And what they're doing is they're teaching you to be a good researcher. You have to be like a self-sufficient researcher. You should be able to analyze stuff on your own, develop research on your own, and all these kinds of things that take a little bit of time to mold a person into. And this is usually what you're going to look like, is you're just reading, you're sitting somewhere reading, probably drinking a ton of coffee, and then writing. Maybe you're in a lab doing some research every once in a while. So it's cool if you're like kind of an introvert and you like books. So here's some organizations that you might need to know. You probably know about these already. ASHA is, the National Board for Speech and Hearing. They try to collect all of the current research. So they take the output of these people and they make it available to the SLPs, because these people don't practice. I don't practice. I don't see clients or anything like that. I just do research. And then when you're seeing clients, you don't have time to do research. There's no way that somebody has time to do both of those. Some people do a little bit of both, but it's kind of like cut way back on one, cut way back on the other, and then you can fit both in. So what ASHA helps with is they compile the research into things that you need to know, and then they kind of cut down all the technical language and give you the important parts, and tell you what new research is out, what new practices are out, what new therapies exist. They host conferences, which you can go to just to learn new things and also to stay up on your continuing education credits. In addition to that, they publish journals for the academic publications that look at research or new practice methods. And then also they are part of the standards boards that accredit programs. So ASU is an accredited program, so people from ASHA had to come and give the okay that this was a good program for people to graduate from. The American Academy of Audiology is basically the same thing, but for audiology. It does all the same stuff. They provide certification for AUDs. That's where your CCCs come from. They also publish journals and host conferences. They also have a website that condenses new research into things that audiologists need to know. So both of these are very good to know. And, depending on your trajectory, that's the one you should put into your bookmarks now and keep it up. It'll help you in homework 1. It'll actually help you in like homework 2 and 3 and also just in your course. So you might as well go ahead and bookmark it, right away. Here are some links. You'll have these later. So here's links to the student section of ASHA and the student group for the audiology. There's also Road to Graduate School events around campus. They have some of these, I know, in the psychology department. I think NISLA has some of these as well, or NISLA. Sorry, NISLA has some of these as well, which I believe you can attend remotely as well. So just because you're an online student doesn't mean that you can't join ASU's NISLA chapter and get all the same benefits that everybody else does. That picture is there because that guy needs some career help. Way more than you guys do. All right. Oh, yeah, okay. I did have a slide on this. So NISLA is the professional student organization. Here's their spring meetings. Obviously, these are past. They haven't announced fall or summer meetings, probably because we're not sure. They're definitely not having summer meetings in person. Fall meetings are kind of up in the air. But as soon as I hear of remote meetings, I'll put them on our Canvas site so you can attend if you want to. And then, like I said, ASU Psychi has a lot of grad school events. They have help with personal statements and GRE study groups. So even though you're not psychology students, that's definitely something to check out. This is their Twitter account. See how they have a volunteer RA fair. They've got all these different things. They're free to go to. There's usually pizza, and they don't check to make sure that you're a psychology student. So if you see something that's going to help you in your career, you might as well just go and get some free pizza because, oh, well, you're remote. Shoot. You're not going to get the free pizza. And also, we might not be doing free pizza when we get back anyway. So there's usually Zoom links for these things, so you should click on it and see if it will help you in your career. The ASU Writing Center has an online presence as well. I'm going to link that in our announcements, and so you can find that. And then the Kale writing book. This is my absolute favorite writing book. It's really short. I don't have my copy here. No, I don't. I must have left it in my office. But it's amazing. It looks like this. I was going to show you how thin it is. It's tiny. But it's just like the best advice. No filler. Just this is how you write. The PDF of this book is on Canvas. The whole book is on Canvas. So if you want to take a look at it for your homework 1, 2, and 3, and also any other writing that you need to do in college, you definitely should. It's a wonderful book. Okay, so let's stop here. Let's pick up with ethics in the next video.